Hello, everyone. How y'all doing? Thank you so much for coming. My name is John Gallant. I'm a principal SDE on the developer experience team at Microsoft. You might think that sounds like a pretty cushy job, but it's actually a lot of fun. So today I'm going to talk about work-life balance and how it relates to us as technology people who are expected to be always on, always available and ready to go. So I started my career as a developer in 1999. For the 7 years before that, all I wanted to do was be a professional musician. So at about 12 years old, I discovered the bass guitar. Fell in love with that. So now you can figure out how old I am. And then when I was in college, my band needed a website. And I thought, well, I could probably figure out how to do that. And so I got myself an HTML book, and I figured it out. And then I realized that I can make some money doing this thing. And my wife is also a musician, and so we were looking at being two broke musicians. And so I said, well, I'll take one for the team, and I'll be a developer. But it turns out I really, really enjoy what I do. I love being a software developer. And I wouldn't really ever go back to think about being a professional musician because I'm in a space right now that I really like where I am. When I went to my professor in music school and I said, hey, I'm thinking about switching to computer science, what do you think? Actually, I didn't ask what do you think, I just said I'm doing it. And he said, good for you, go and do that because you'll be able to afford instruments unlike all my friends. So that was it. So I switched to computer science, and that was in 1999. And as many of you know, 1999 was kind of the year to get into it. Shortly thereafter, a couple months later, everything kind of went south. The company I was in laid off about 58% of people after a $53 million data center deal went south. Luckily, I recognized that 2 weeks before that happened, and I was able to move on to a different role. But at the time, it was very exciting, right? I spent the next roughly 2 or 3 years traveling the country as an independent software developer. And throughout that experience, I met somebody from Microsoft at an event. It was a tech ed in Atlanta. I think the guy's name was Eric Lee, and he worked for the Visual Studio team. And I walked up to him and I asked him a bunch of questions, and he was super cool, and he helped me out. And I said, hey, look, I want to go work for Microsoft. I want to work on the tech I use, and the people seem really cool. And so in 2001, I made the decision that I want to go work for Microsoft. And I decided I could take two routes. I could go back to school and get a degree and go get a job at Microsoft, or I could just work like a madman, get the experience, and get in that way. So I decided to not go back to school. Don't tell my kid that I want him to go to school. And it turns out that while I was in Florida, I called up a recruiter and I said, hey, I'm in Florida, but I want to work for Microsoft. Do you have any positions available? And she said, well, matter of fact, I do. And so 2 weeks later, I started at Microsoft. I was in travel mode, so I could move anywhere in 2 weeks. So I started at Microsoft, and it was pretty fantastic. I started as a contractor. A year later, I became an FTE, and since then, about a year into my time at Microsoft, I became a manager, and I was a manager up until May of this year. So that's a good 12 years of managing people and working on high-scale internet services at Microsoft. So I worked on MSDN, I worked on Bing, MSN, Bing Ads, IoT, and before this role, I was in Power BI. And so when I was in Bing Ads, I was employee number 2 on a team with 30 open heads. So I had to hire a team of 30 like that. And so as you can imagine, I saw hundreds of resumes. And everybody asks, what is work-life balance like at Microsoft? Because I've heard it's horrible. And I always say, well, it's not as bad as Amazon, which is very true. And so I said, hey, look, why don't I just write a blog post about work-life balance at Microsoft? And so I did. I published that blog post, and it spread out, got retweeted a bunch, and it turned out to be one of my most popular blog posts. About 25,000 people have least looked at this blog post. And to me, that just means that like work-life balance for us is a challenge. People are interested in it. People want to, figure this thing out, right? And so since then, I've done a bunch of talks on work-life balance. And honestly, I don't claim to be an expert in work-life balance. I don't have a degree in it. There are people that actually do have degrees. This is all they do is think about work-life balance. That's not me. I'm an engineering manager who supports people and their struggle with work-life balance. Because I call it a struggle because it's not something that I think, we should try to attain perfect work-life balance. I think that it's something that we work through, right? And us as software engineers struggle, or anybody in tech kind of struggles with that the most because we want to do so many things. We're interested in so many things, and a lot of us have families, right? And we want to be able to do great things and also have a good, happy family life, right? And that kind of describes me and a lot of people that are on my teams. And so, see this. Having clicker issues. I think the on button might help. Let me try that. Thanks, Natalie. Okay, so just real quick to look at my personal life versus work slide. My life right now, I have a 6-year-old boy, which any of you that have kids know that they require no time at all. It's like you just feed them and then they're on their way. Obviously, just kidding. I spend about roughly 5 hours a day with my boy, teaching him something. I keep telling him, I'm going to teach you everything I know. And so that, to me, is very important in this season of my life. Also, I really like to blog because I like to help people. I like to help developers especially. So when I'm coding something, I will push it out on my blog. When I get asked a question, I'll try and blog about it. I'll do blog post series on things that I'm learning and researching. So I just really enjoy that as a person, not necessarily as a software developer. I don't necessarily get paid to do it. I've been doing it since 2004, and nobody has paid me to do it until this current job. Also, I'm really into 3D printing and 3D modeling. I do a ton of that kind of stuff. I got into it when I was in the IoT team, building 3D printed enclosures and that kind of stuff is just a lot of fun. I'm obsessive about coffee. I really like fresh roasted, fresh ground, freshly brewed coffee. I geek out on that. And also, obviously, like I said, I'm really into music. So whether I'm listening to it, playing it, teaching my kid guitar or drums or piano or whatever it may be, those are the things that are consuming me at what I call life. The cool thing about my current role is that, as you can see, a lot of these things overlap, right? So my focus right now is Azure IoT, and what that involves is hardware hacking. It involves cloud. It involves helping people use Azure IoT, so blogging about things that I'm learning, creating YouTube videos on things that I'm learning, and also with 3D printing enclosures for these projects I'm working on. I was in Portugal a couple weeks ago where we had an Arduino, we had a breadboard, and I showed up and said, hey, why don't I just solder together that board for you into a custom circuit board and 3D print an enclosure for you. And it was cool that I was able to do that as part of my job, right? So kind of a dream job right now. I'm trying to, hopefully I can keep it as long as possible. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through a bunch of these slides that I've prepped and just have a conversation. So if you have any question, feel free to raise your hand. Or any reaction, you can yell it out. And what I did is I went through and thought about each of these things that we're going to talk about, and I picked out a quote and some questions for you, right? So I'm not here to tell you what work-life balance is. I'm here to set a frame in your mind to start you thinking about what it means for you, right? So if I said, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you're like, thanks, John. That works for you, but it doesn't work for me, right? So it's all about you thinking about looking at each of these slides as we go through it and picking out just one nugget. So your job for now, for the rest of this hour, is to think about one thing that you're going to take away from this talk. Just one thing. If you have two, that's a bonus. It's a great quote by Steve Jobs, right? Big thinker, wants to have an impact on the universe. Is that you? If it's not you, it's okay, right? So when you think about your legacy, you think about what you want to leave behind when you're gone, right? So do you think Power BI, the thing that I spent so much of my career working on, will be around when I'm gone? Do you think that Windows IoT will be around? Hopefully, maybe. Do you think that MSN is going to last forever? I spent 5 years working on MSN, right? So start thinking about things that will outlive you. And this came to me when I was reading a book recently to my boy. It's called Make Way for Ducklings, written by Robert McCloskey. And we have this a thing where we look at the year that a book was written before we read it, just to kind of get perspective of what a time in our lives, or in the span of time, like when was this thing written? This book was written 75 years ago, right? And I thought, what am I doing that's going to last 75 years, right? So think about that. And here's Woz. Same question, right? He's thinking, how do I design a good computer? He wants a little note somewhere saying he designed a good computer. Steve Jobs is saying, I want to put a dent in the universe. Which one do you think actually succeeded? It's a trick question, right? It's a trick question. Both of them did. One is focused on building a computer. The first one is impacting the universe. Both successful. So if legacy is what's going to outlive you, think about impact is what's going to happen while you're here. What are you going to make happen while you're here? So Ben Franklin, I love this guy, right? He's actually my uncle. No, he's not my uncle. So what he says is either write something worth reading or do something worth writing, right? So what I think is 9 to 5, working 9 to 5 and trying to have impact in your 9 to 5 in a team room, pair programming with people talking the entire time, right? Kind of impacts your impact. It impacts your impact, right? So can you do this? Can you have impact between 9 to 5? All the startups that I've been involved with, all the projects, all my interests, they don't happen between 9 to 5. Most of them are in the middle of the night because I have an inspiration or I'm building something or I'm working something. And it's not necessarily something, because I'm a very creative person, it's not going to happen when somebody says it should happen during this time of the day, right? So I leave time for inspiration. I leave time to build on these things that I think are going to have lasting impact. And nobody gets it more than Kanye West, right? But that's okay, right? Because what he's saying is, I feel like I'm too busy writing history to read it. And you contrast it with Ben Franklin, and Kanye is right on point, right? No matter what you say about the guy, like he knows why he's here. Do you? Do I? I don't know. I ask myself that all the time. Do I know why? Kanye West, Benjamin Franklin. How many times do you see a quote of Benjamin Franklin and Kanye West on the same slide? Okay. When I discovered this, I was like, magic. There's a reason why they pay you. You work because it's work. You've heard this before, right? I think it's BS, right? I think you should enjoy your work. I think you should go to work and enjoy it. How many here enjoy your job? Awesome, right? That's like 60% of you. 61, okay. Okay, how many enjoy your job 100% of the time? 100%. Wow. All right, let's talk after, dude. Amazing. What's your name? Aaron. Okay, I got to remember that. Okay, so although I have my current dream job right now, I don't enjoy it 100% of the time. So this guy's got something figured out. Okay, so as a manager, what I tell people is 80-20. 80-20, right? Enjoy your job, truly enjoy it 80% of the time. That gives you 1 day a week for what I call suck it up time. Okay? And so as a manager, when I'm giving something to somebody and they're hemming and hawing, and I'm like, dude, suck it up. And they're like, oh, I remember him saying that before. I know what that means. Okay, I'll do it, you know? And I allow that for myself as well. But if suck it up time turns into 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% of your time, what are you going to do? You're going to get a different job, right? So if you didn't raise your hand at 80% enjoyment, guess what? It's time for a different job. It's time to do something else, right? This is where I hand out my email address, and you can send me your resume. But I shouldn't do that. Okay, so with all that, you have seasons, right? So right now, like I said, 6-year-old boy, my wife is, I'm not going to tell you how old she is. She is involved in tech, right? So her and I send SQL statements back and forth, and it's awesome. True story. She texted me the other day. She's like, "Hey, SQL statement in an iMessage. Like, I'm trying to do this thing. What do I do?" 2 minutes later, she texted back, "Oh, figured it out. I just needed to do an in my query." And I was like, "That's magic, right? That's awesome." So we were both music majors. Now we both do computer science stuff. But that's my season, right? I'm only going to have this one season of having a 6-year-old boy. Like, this is it. Like, that's not going to happen again unless I have more kids, which I need. That's a different conversation. Not SQL. Can't generate kids with SQL. So my point is, recognize when you're going through a season and say, okay, this is what I'm going to go through for this season. Like, if I'm trying to raise a boy, a 6-year-old boy, and I'm trying to do a startup and I'm on call at Microsoft and this and that, whatever, like I'm going to explode, right? Can't do all that at once. You just can't. So recognize the season. If you are 18, no kids, no wife, no money, no what? Enjoy it. Thank you. I was there. Then that's a season that you're going through. Maybe it's a good time to do a startup. Maybe it's a good time to just go fully in depth into, whatever your work thing might be or whatever it may be, right? So just recognize that season. About, in 1999 and years after that, I had time where I started my own company. I was working for another company. I was married at the time, but I'm still married. I was married, but I said, hey, look, this is the beginning. This is a season I'm going through. I wasn't this mature back then, but this is a season I'm going through at this moment, and I can put in 8 hours a night doing coding and learning because I wanted to learn. I wanted to be the best HTML guy ever, right? And so I did that. And so recognize that season. What season are you going through right now? Right? Whatever it is, it's okay. You just have to recognize it and be willing to commit to whatever you can in that season. So I come from a very poor background. I was brought up in the middle of Maine. It's a state in the United States, and in the country where nobody has money, right? And I've carried that with me this entire time, where I don't need a lot of money, right? I don't need a big house. I don't need a fancy car, right? I drive a 98 Camry that I've been driving since 2000, right? And my back is killing me. It's that seat. And so decide how much money you need to be content, right? How much money do you need to be content? Do you need a big house? Does your wife or husband need a big house? If so, then work like hell to get that. But my wife and I both, when we started we got married in 99. When we started, rent was $325 a month. I was making $400 a month. We had $75 of play money per month, right? Including groceries. And so now I make $425 a month. And so we can go to the movies once a month. So what is it for you, though? How much money do you actually need? Let's say you have a big house, a big, nice, fancy car, a boat. What else do you want? And what are you willing to trade for that? Are you saying, I want a ton of money to buy a lot of fancy, cool stuff at the expense of doing something I enjoy, right? Because guaranteed, you can make a lot of money, right? If you suck it up 100% of the time doing a job you hate because you want money, you'll get there. But then what? Right? Then what? You're going to be just hating life, right? And I personally don't want to do that. I would rather not, right? I would rather just live a decent life in a house that's big enough and do stuff I like to do. Another Benjamin Franklin quote. How many of you are moving nonstop? Always something on your mind, always something going on. And how many of you are being pulled in 1,000 different directions? Maybe island life is different, but where I'm from, you're in demand. Everybody wants your time, right? You're being pulled in all these different directions, but whose fault is that? Is it your boss's fault? It's your fault, right? Because you allow yourself to be pulled in all these directions. For me, I am pulled in all these different directions, but I'm kind of okay with it to a certain extent, right? Because I'm interested in so many things. You saw my slide. Like before, I add to that list, I had photography, right? I had snowboarding. I had playing in a band. I had all of these things that were just pulling me in all these different directions. And I said, okay, you get to a breaking point and you say, okay, I need to focus. I need to trim. And with focus, you also need productive time, focused time. So focus is in two senses of not being pulled in too many directions, but focus as in once you're in that direction, how do you focus on what you're currently working on at that given moment? Or when you're working on coding, whatever, or you're working on this spec, or you're doing whatever, are you thinking, oh, wow, I really should be doing this other thing. I have, to do this by Friday, I got to do that, whatever. Are you able to singularly focus on that thing, that task at hand? How many of you are in open space work environments? Okay. How many, keep your hands up. How many of you truly, your boss ain't looking, how many of you think it's better than having your own office? Okay, we got a bunch of managers here. Great. Facilities people, saving a dime. I worked in open space for many, many years, and I was a champion of it at Microsoft. But when I moved from open space back to my own office, wow. Like the productivity time that I myself saw as an increase was amazing. Because you know what? I could shut my door and I could go as an engineer, as a developer. You need that focused time, right? You need that time where you can just soak in whatever you're working on. Are you going to figure out, are you going to have impact, right? If somebody is right next to you talking about Game of Thrones, like latest, whatever, and like tapping on your shoulder and being like, hey, that Trump Clinton thing, man. And you're like, dude, I'm trying to code up this crazy encryption thing, and you're talking to me about politics. So can you focus? And yes, there are focus rooms, right? But are you going to bring your 14 monitors into a focus room? No joke. Like somebody on my team, I think he's up to 10 monitors right now. And I think it's because he's in an open space, and he's surrounded by monitors to escape reality. Hey, Jim. I have a photo of him where Facebook is on every single one of the monitors. And like, productive guy. So this is something that I truly need. Like, I need focus, right? I can't be bothered all the time. So if you're in an open space environment, figure out how to not be. So, and that could mean a focus room, or it could mean, booking a conference room for the day, or whatever it may be, but figure that out. Because, but also think to yourself, like, is it good for you to be in an open space environment? If so, fine, don't do anything. If you're bothered by it, do something about it, right? And like, I doubt somebody is going to barricade your time. You go to your boss and you say, look, I need focus time, help me out. I'm sure they could accommodate. If not, I'm hiring. Okay, so everybody knows who Warren Buffett is, right? Warren Buffett. Okay? So the top of this quote is, the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. All right? But you want to be a team player, right? Your boss comes by and he or she is like, hey, can you do this extra thing that's not going to be on your review and nobody is ever going to care about it? I'm guilty of doing stuff like that as a manager. But it's fun, it's cool, it's like this. Yeah. So Learn to say no. But if you have it figured out where you have your legacy, right? What you want when you're gone, your impact, what are you working towards while you're here? Then you're able to quickly zero in and say, okay, somebody's asking me for time that's going to take away from those things. Should I do it, yes or no? So have that framework, right, to be ready to focus. The two evils of our world. Let's get religious. Email and calendar, right? The demons for a software developer. How many here dev software? Okay, what does everyone do here? Oh man, island life. It's amazing. So we have 2 software developers and everyone else tells them what to do. That's like the typical company.
That's why we're busy.
That's why we're busy.
No,
Right. You translate it, okay. Okay, how many people here have figured out their inbox? I see a lot of like, nah. Okay. About 2005, I was missing emails. People would stop by and they'd be like, hey, John, did you see that non-important email I sent? I really need an answer. And I'd be like, dude, I am deploying to prod right now. I don't care about email. But then I said, okay, this is going to destroy me if I don't figure it out, right? Because as a creative person, the last thing I want to do is be in Outlook, right? So I mean, now that I know you're not all devs, I was going to say this, but it might offend all of them. If your life is in Outlook, you probably don't have a life, right? Because email, right? It can just consume you. It can control you. You have it on your phone. You have it on your desktop. You have it on your tablet. You have it on your fridge. Wherever you go, there's this thing where people just need your attention, right? And so what I did is I figured out a system with Outlook that allows me to triage my inbox in minutes, right? And so I have a set of priorities. In Outlook, I have categories. I have shortcut keys on my keyboard where I can do Control-Shift-1 to mark something as a P1, and then all the way up to P3. I have P4 means follow up with this email. P5, Control-Shift-5 is just ignore this email, it was never sent. It just goes into some folder. And so within minutes, I can go from having all of this email to a prioritized bucketing system of email, right? Call it getting things done, call it whatever you want. But that's it. Like I do email first thing in the morning, I get it done, and then I'll shut off Outlook, right? And when I go and I see somebody's Outlook and it's a disaster, right? They open up their email, it's just like, what is going on? That reflects poorly on that person. So if your email, your folder state, your email state, like that reflects who you are as a person. Is it messy or is it clean, right? Do you have 100%, do you know like what's in your inbox right now and you can, like, are you stressing about it, all this email, all this stuff, or do you just have a system you haven't figured out? So about 10 years ago, I developed that, and it's been great. I haven't really missed many emails. And you know what? Like, the world goes on without you responding to email. The link down, one sec. The link down on the bottom, bit.ly/0inbox, that'll get you to my system for what I use. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you manage the expectation of others that is becoming more pervasive, that as soon as they've sent you an email, you've seen it?
Yeah, so I don't respond. And then, so, okay. So the question was, how do you respond to people who are annoyed because you don't respond right away? So there are evil people in this world. That sounds like one of them, because like my life is not controlled by email. So recently happened to me was somebody's like, hey, why didn't you get that email? And I'm digging through my inbox and I'm like, oh, you put me in CC. CC, if you put me in CC, it goes to a special folder. I don't really read those emails, right? And so I sent him a bullet list, and I said, if you want my attention right away, high pri email, it goes to my phone. Like, it pops up on my phone. But it better be a high pri. Like don't bother me if it's not. If you want my attention that day, put me in the 2 line. If you want my attention at some point in the future, you don't really care, it's information, you're not expecting a reply, CC. Right? And I have special folders for all that stuff. And from then on out, guess what? Guess what happens? He sends me high pri email all the time. So then I basically had to respond and say, hey, look, high pri is for like high pri stuff. So it's about training people around what works for you versus trying to, train yourself for what works for other people, So the second evil in the world is calendar. How many of you have your calendar under control? Okay, awesome. Okay, we can skip the next section. So calendar for me is super important because for my work-life balance, what I do is I block off time. If you look at my calendar right now, I have from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., it's blocked off as family, right? No phone, no email, nothing during those hours. From 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. when my kid goes to sleep, it's blocked off as family. Okay. After that, it's just blocked. So nobody can schedule a meeting at night with me. And nobody can schedule a meeting during those times I have it blocked. I just I invite myself to my own meeting and block it off. And typically what I do too is I block off 1 day a week for think and code time. With my current role, I can do that 3 days a week. So Thursday, Friday, and then Monday are blocked off. And I'm not saying I won't ever do a meeting then, but if somebody needs a meeting during those hours, they'll ping me and say, hey, are you available? And at that moment, I can choose yes or no, or I can say, no, it's got to wait until Tuesday or Wednesday when I have meeting days. Right? Otherwise, as a developer, I need a full day to code. I need time to get into my space. If I have a 10:30 meeting and I start work at 9, okay, I have a half hour, and then I got a half-hour meeting, if I'm lucky, and then I got lunch, and then, okay, now it's 1, and then, there's another 2:30 in the afternoon, so then I have another hour and a half. That just drives me mad, right? So I just say, look, these are my rules. I do meetings Tuesday and Wednesdays. Maybe you can't do that, but you can do some form of it. You can block off some time that works for you. So is that your takeaway for today? Block off your calendar, say no to meetings. That would be amazing. David Beckham, you guys know him? A little bit. Doesn't he play soccer or something? I thought I'd say the word soccer. So he's fortunate enough to have and do something to get paid for it, and he considers it his hobby, right? But how many of you have hobbies that are distracting you from that thing that you've established because you heard this talk, your impact, right? How many of you are like, I really, really want to change the world, but I also want to play Pokemon Go, right? I'm level 20. My kid doesn't want to play anymore, but I'm still playing. I haven't got Pikachu yet. I need to. So you see, I have problems too. Okay. Oh man, I was in Portugal a couple weeks ago, and there was a Pikachu, and I was with a guy, Francisco, and I'm like, let's go get him. I have to get him for my kid. And he's like, have you seen the hills in Portugal? Where that is, you would have to go up and down a big hill. And we were hungry. And so I missed out on Pikachu in Portugal. Sad story, right? So I was heavily into photography. Well, I mean, everybody goes through this, I think, that has a kid. They're like, I need a camera that's low light capable and all this crazy stuff because my kid's going to be in these dark places and I need this really special SLR that's going to be amazing. And then I just went deep into photography. Like, I'm crazy about it. Like, I got Lightroom, I got Photoshop, I have all these filters, I'm going crazy. And like $5,000 later, right? I'm like, I have a new hobby. But is that distracting me from the things that really matter? Is the Windows Phone camera good enough? I wouldn't know. I don't have one. But my iPhone camera is pretty good. So, what can you trim, right? Like, what hobbies are you doing? What, like, stupid random stuff are you doing that you can trim? Right? And are your hobbies creating this imbalance in your work life, right? Just think about that. Trim is necessary. I like to overcommit. I always have. Which is probably why I like to talk about work-life balance, because I need the reminder. This January, I was custom designing a 3D printed boombox enclosure for another team at Microsoft. So Autodesk Fusion 360, designing this custom thing, spending hours and hours and hours building this thing. And it was amazing. I learned so much, right? It was great. At the same time, I was an engineering manager for Power BI Embedded, which basically allows you to embed custom BI dashboards into your own application. Brand new product. I'd hire a new team, right? At the same time, I was doing a startup. Okay? So how many of you could do 3 of those things, all 3 at the same time? I got a hand in the back. I don't know if that's a yawn or what, but okay, so I got to a breaking point, right? I was running from dinner to my phone call with the startup, back up to read to my kid, down to code for the evening, getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep, running back upstairs to have breakfast, go to work, totally distracted. It was crazy, right? And I was completely burned out. Like I did it for 6 months. Completely burned out. And we're not talking like ages ago and now I'm much wiser. We're talking about months ago, right? So even if you think about this stuff, you have to recognize when you can burn out. Like what your burnout point is. What is your body telling you when you're to that point of complete burnout? Right? For me, I was literally drinking like 8 shots of coffee a day. And in Portugal, that's actually common. Like everybody drinks shots of coffee. When I went there, it was crazy. Like Nespresso all day long. That's normal in some parts of the world. Maybe that's same here. I didn't feel good, right? I was just all distracted. Right? I was just running all over the place. And I had to make a decision. I had to stop one of those 3 things, right? So the 3D printing thing stopped. I was still doing a ton of stuff with the startup. I was still working at Microsoft. I had to make a decision. Do I stop Microsoft or do I do the startup? Right? And it was an actual question that I had to ask myself, right? Because I still haven't figured out what my legacy will be from a career perspective. And I was thinking maybe that could be it, right? Because everybody gets involved in Starbucks. Wow, I need coffee. Startups, because they believe in it, right? They're willing to put in the free time, effectively, to work on that startup. So it was a real question for me. And I decided to end the startup, end my involvement in it, and just focus on one career. And at the time, I also switched jobs to my current job, and I said, hey, look, this is amazing. I'm going to go and do this. So the big thing here is recognize your burnout point, right? Be willing to say no, or be willing to quit something where you feel like you could be super tired. You could be gaining a bunch of weight. You could be, whatever it may be, you're at some point of imbalance. Recognize it. So I'm up at 4 a.m. every single day. That's crazy, right? I guess what time I go to sleep. I found out recently, does anyone here know that who Mark Wahlberg is? Marky Mark? That's how I know him. He has the same schedule as I do. So he goes to sleep at 8, wakes up at 4. Right? And some of you are like, you go to sleep at 8? What? That's crazy. But it's so important for me to have balance and to have what I call me time that I'm willing to do that. Because I'm the type of person that needs time by myself to just do whatever I want to do, right? You know, a 6-year-old boy, when he's around, that's it. Like I'm helping him do something, teaching him something, or whatever. I need my time. Like if I didn't have me time, I'd go crazy, right? Because I'm interested in so many things. And so from 4 to 6 every day, I do whatever I want. I call it me time. I wake up, and oftentimes I'll play Pokemon Go for 2 hours. No. I jump on the treadmill. I walk for a bit. Sometimes I'll pick up my guitar. Sometimes I'll research something. Sometimes I'll code. Sometimes I'll work. The point is, that time is whatever time. And you decide what to do with that time. It's the time in the day where you fully control that time and nobody else is telling you what to do in that time. Do you have that? How many here have that me time? Awesome. Wow. Island life. I love it. I might move here. How many people are here are from New Zealand? Okay. I love it so far. Okay, this one I love, right? How many of you set oof messages that go something like this? Hey, I'm sorry, I'm out on an island somewhere. I'm going to be slow to respond to email. Right? You guys are like, I'm always on an island. So my point is, like, gotta have boundaries, right? You gotta be able to say, this time of the day, this time of the year, this vacation, this whatever is off limits to whatever that thing is going to distract me from whatever I should be focusing on, right? So if you are trying to do too many things all at once, you're going to have a hard time with boundaries. But if you say, look, these, like when I go home at night, if I'm on my phone and my kid is like, hey, want to do something or whatever, and I'm like, yeah. Just a second, right? Like, how good of a person can you be if you ignore, like, a kid for a phone, right? So that's something I personally like to do, is to turn down every thing that's related to whatever I shouldn't be whatever I should be focused on, everything else is gone, right? And it's funny too because like I tell my wife like, yeah, I'm doing this work-life balance thing. She's like, oh, you're still doing that? Okay, cool. Like even she doesn't believe me, you know. But it's kind of I'm not talking here because I have it figured out. I'm talking because this is aspirational stuff for me, and you know, one nugget of takeaway for you. In the States, well, at least at Microsoft, you get vacation time, you get sick time, you get holidays. Right? I personally try and use up all of that. Everything. Right? How many here have heard of mental health days? All right. I saw a video on YouTube after I did this blog post and I talked about mental health days. I saw somebody making fun of millennials and mental health days. And I'm like, well, I'm not a millennial, but hey, like, I believe in them. Right? Because sometimes you don't want to go to work and your brain is just like, I can't do it today. Right? That's sick. Right? That's sick time. Use it. Right? That message is not sponsored by Microsoft. So if you're allowed to carry over vacation and you're like proud of like how much time you're carrying over, and come on, right? My last manager. Okay, so we do a poll at Microsoft. We say, how do you feel about work-life balance at Microsoft? And at the time, I was shipping Power BI embedded. Very important for Microsoft, right? Very important, right? People were working like crazy on my team. The most I've ever seen a team work because we believed in shipping this thing by build of last year. We really wanted to do it, so we pulled together as a team and did it, and everybody worked really hard. Work-life balance numbers came in from our Microsoft poll. Horrendous, awful. So got a whole team together, got my boss there, and I'm hoping like he's gonna say, guys, thank you so much for putting in all this time. But you know what he said? He said, look, my personal decision is to work from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day. He doesn't have lunch, he just works. And my team is like, I have 4 kids. You know, the guy's like, is that what it takes to succeed here? But he said something important. He said, but that's for me. It doesn't mean it should be for you, right? So make that decision for yourself, but don't necessarily, pressure other people to do that. Like, it would be wrong for me to turn around and judge him and say, you're an awful person because you work that much. Like, that's his call. As long as he's not saying you all need to do that in order to be successful, right? So he might have issues with boundaries, but that's okay for him. Figure out what your boundaries are. How many of you here are managers? Okay, all right. Same number of people that like open space. Think about that. Okay, being a manager for 12 years at Microsoft. Managed teams of 50 people, all right? I'm like, okay, developer on my team, you're super important. Very important the work that you're doing, but when I need to talk about you, am I going to remember all the important things that you've done? Right? When I need to think about the impact that you're having at the company for review time, for whatever it may be, like, I don't know. And that's a stress that managers have, but it's also a stress that anybody who works for a manager, right, should have as well. Right? So how I relate this to work-life balance is you should be focused. You shouldn't be thinking about, does my manager know what I'm working on and do they find value in the work that I'm doing? Right? That frees you up to do other more important things. right? So as a manager, what I like to do is say, hey, just send me highlights of stuff that you're doing so I have that in my back pocket so that I know what you're working on at all points. So what I want to challenge everyone here to do is, like, everybody works for somebody unless you work for yourself, but then you still work for the government. I don't know. So send an email to your manager, tell them what you're working on, tell them the impact you're having. It's going to relieve a lot of, like, not a lot. It's going to relieve a bit of that work-life stress where you're not wondering, how you're doing. So what I do with my manager, because I was a manager for so long, I can go to my new manager, who's amazing, very, very good manager at Twitter, SQL Gal, SQL G-A-L, Laura Rubelke. She's really good manager. She basically says, hey, look, you know what you're doing. I trust you. Go do it. Not all managers are like that, and you can't do that with everyone. But I'm exceptional. No, I'm just kidding. So my point is that I send her preemptive status. I'll say, here's the stuff I'm working on. Here are the partners I'm working with. Here are the events I'm going to. Here's the code I've done. Here's the blog. Like everything, she has it, right? Try that. It helps. Okay, so you've figured out everything. You've figured out all of this stuff so far. You have this perfect inbox, your perfect calendar. You know your impact. Everything is working great. And then your boss comes and says, hey, there's a client meeting tonight at 6 p.m. I know it's whatever your time, but super important. Do you say, oh no, that time I'm going to be hanging with my whatever or doing my thing? Or do you evaluate it and be flexible and say, you know what, that right there, I have a hunch that thing is important, so I'm going to change. I'm going to be flexible and alter your schedule, alter your time, whatever, based on things that are of high impact. TR? You might not know I'm over here. So if you could kick the person in the pants responsible for most of your trouble, you wouldn't sit for a month, right? So who do you think in your life is going to be concerned about your balance? Right? Like, of course your manager is, right? Of course your wife is, or husband, or kids. But who can change it? Who can alter it? Who can have a true impact on it? It's probably, I don't know, you, right? Like if you're stressed out, work, life, all of this stuff going on, whose fault is that? Right? It's John Gallant's fault. It's my fault. It's your fault. Right? So the point is if you struggle with this stuff, look at how many people showed up today. Thank you so much for coming and hearing me talk. But it just goes to show that people are concerned about work-life balance, or you think this is going to be a cushy session where you can just sit back and relax and have a few good laughs. That's okay too. But I think, based on the number of responses I got in my blog, based on the number of people asking me what work-life balance is like, based on how many people showed up today, I think it's a problem. I think it's something that we all struggle with, right? But it starts with you, and it starts today. So what's your one nugget? What's your one nugget that you got today? Those are my other sessions. Thank you. So you all have it all figured out? All right, let's do, I think we have a few minutes for questions. Is that right? Oh, resumes. of course. Always welcome a resume. But I don't know if I can actually do that at a Microsoft sponsored event. But let's chat after. Yeah. Yeah, come and see me for sure. Any other questions? Thank you all for coming.